Good evening. I'm Judge Wolf.
And I'm Severian.
And we're here from Tabletop Anthologies to talk about Judge Dredd in the world of 2000 AD. We actually did this video once before, but unfortunately it didn't record properly. So we're going to run through it again really quick to help our fellow judges out there do their character generation using the new system with What's Old is New, the WOIN. So we just finished up Judge Dredd Full Legal Day by Mongoose Publishing, which is a D20 system. It had its flaws. There's a couple things I didn't like too much. So we actually found the new system, which was on Kickstarter at the end of last year, and have begun to transition into using that. So during next week, we're going to do a couple of more videos where we talk about the system, and we're going to transition into the system the following week. So Judge Dredd in the world of 2000 AD is what's called a What's Old is New system. There are a couple of other games that use this system. It's all based around D6. The basic system is attribute dice plus skill dice plus equipment dice, and you roll against a benchmark set by the GM, which is the basis of the game. I'm going to gush a little bit about the system really quick. There are a couple things I really like. First off, there's a dice cap. Your initial pool, which is your attribute plus skill plus equipment, is limited to your grade, which is governed by the number of careers you have. So let's say, for example, I was in the military. Okay, I was in the Marine Corps. Now, me and Severian go out to the range. I give him an extremely nice rifle, and I use the same rifle. Even if he's had a little bit of training, I've definitely had a lot more training using this type of a weapon. So at some point, he's going to get this diminishing return where the rifle's not going to be as good for him as it will be for me. Another thing that I really like about this system is the career system. So you can still spend experience points, basically like to increase your abilities, but instead of doing that, you can also use your XP to increase your skills, which do attributes, which allow you to increase your skill points and do an exploit. These are all done, can actually be done for free if the GM deems that there's going to be some downtime as well. Another thing I'm really happy with this system is exploits. So exploits can be kind of thought as feats, but in Dungeons and Dragons and other D20 systems, I feel like feats are an annoying thing, right? Whenever you're, especially when you're the GM, they're just annoying. It's like, oh, you have this feat. Okay, great, lovely. Well, the game actually pushes you to use those feats. And the reason why I like them as a GM is because it also pushes the GM to use the feats as well against the players. Another thing that I really love about this system is the diminishing returns. It's absolutely 100% possible to min-max, but the game tries to limit you just a little bit. In your attributes, if you have strength 10, you don't get 10 dice. It's broken up and begins to expand as you get higher and higher. So at skill points 1 and 2, you only get 1 die. At 3 and 5, you get 2 dice, and then it starts to spread out. As you get to 6 and 9, you get to only 3 dice. 10 to 14 is 4 dice, and so on and so forth. And then the last thing I really like about this system is the multiple defense skills, which we'll talk about at the end of this video. So Judge Null, which I can officially call you now, welcome and congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to go ahead and Chargen you up with this system. Are you ready?
Yep.
Fantastic. So the book lists the steps, which I am going to put up right now. So the book lists the steps, which I just put up, and I'm going to run through them very, 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 very quickly. The first thing that you do is all of your attributes are going to start off at 3, except for reputation and psi. You're going to choose a species, which are very limited in this game. There's a couple things you'll do with that. Afterwards, you're going to, we'll probably wait until the end to generate a hook, but we'll see how you're feeling. You do 5 careers for basic Chargen, which puts you at a grade of 5. You select the aim or feint feat, and then 1 more universal, not a feat, it's an exploit. You choose 1 trait based on your highest attribute, and then you calculate your derived skills, determine your age, and then you do your equipment. So it's all laid out nice and neat. So while I go ahead and remove this list, why don't you tell us just a little bit about Judge Null and your kind of how you perceive him in the game now that you are no longer Cadet Null, you're Judge Null?
Well, I see Judge Null as being a very stoic individual and always going by the rule of the law and following it as much as he can and really seeing the best in people and using the law to protect them. But at the same time, he's also a side judge. So through that, he uses empathy a lot.
So for your race then, with judges, you really only have two selections, right? You can only be either a human or a clone. Which one did you choose for that?
I went with human on this one. It works a lot better if you're going for a side build.
So whenever you pick the human build, what happens? What's your, for the skills and selection stuff that you can do for the human?
Right, so choosing the human gives me +2 to luck, 2 to any attribute, and +1 to a third attribute. I went with Psi for the 2 and Intuition for the 1.
And
then on top of that, I get to choose 3 skills, and I chose Perception, Interrogation, and Telepathy.
Well, while you fill that out on your character sheet, just briefly, when you first pick your race, you're in this game, you will get a list of attributes that you are allowed to bump up. In the case of humans, you pick between some. You then have a set of skills. Now, briefly, attributes are your basic abilities, your inbuilt kind of stuff. So when it comes to attributes, we have a couple of different types. And I'll run through those very, very quickly. Your strength is essentially your brute force. Agility is your dexterity and reflexes. Endurance is a measure of your healthiness. Intuition, which I've gotten mixed up a couple of times with intelligence, is actually your common sense and natural instinct. Intuition plays a big role with perception for determining if there's things around you for like ambushes and stuff. Logic is kind of a mixture of wisdom and intelligence. Willpower is your strength of mind. Charisma is your physical attractiveness and force of presence. And then you have luck, which is an interesting skill or attribute that we'll talk a little bit about in another video. And it kind of plays a role like World of Darkness's willpower or destiny points in the Fantasy Flight Star Wars game. Reputation is your fame and respect and influence. And then finally, Psi is your psionic characteristics, which Judge Null said he was going to select. Skills, on the other hand, are basically your things that you are trained in to do, your abilities at different things. The game system actually, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up the skill list here, because with humans, you get to select between any of these. And the game left it very open to the skills list, although it's kind of a warning for new players and GMs out there to pay attention, because many exploits require you to have specific skills, and you don't want to double up on a lot of things. Yeah, maybe you want a character who's good at boxing and who's good at martial arts, but taking those skill points is not going to be of any benefit to your character. So the reason why the skill system's left open is because this game doesn't want you to just be, go, where are we going to the next place? Who are we shooting? Where are we going? What are we doing? Right? We want to be able to kind of get out there and think about things and do other things. Maybe somebody's good at intimidation. Maybe somebody's good at interrogation, right? These two things could still be used in the same roles, but it's very much about the character. So with every race, you're going to have a set of attributes that you do. You add all of those attributes. It'll then let you choose between 3 skills. And finally, it'll allow you to take all of the exploits for your particular race that are listed. So you mentioned that you had the varied exploit, which allows you to pick an extra +2 and +1 to different attributes. Did you say which ones you picked for that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so for that, I added 2 to Psi and 1 to Intuition.
Okay.
And then I get a second exploit called Enduring, which I added here on the sheet. It gives me +1 to 1d6 die rolls to shake off a temporary condition.
So next we move into careers. And Dredd is set up for 3 different types of characters in mind: criminals, citizens, and judges. We are playing judges. Well, they are playing judges. I'm GMing this. And judges have a very specific career list. Citizens and criminals have this wide variety of careers, so that I'm sure is going to be expanded in future gaming or different expansions. I really like the career system. Additionally, you can take careers twice if it fits with your character. So let's say you're very good at something in particular. Let's say you're a med judge, and in training, you want to take the medical career twice. That's totally fine. So for judges, though, it's very specific on how you have to go. It's a chain. In the career chain, you pick your career, you up the attributes, it says, you pick 2 skills and add a single point to each of them, and then choose 1 exploit. You may also choose a defense skill instead of listed ones, or a you can choose a defense skill or a universal exploit, which is not generally done because the exploits that come along with the careers are pretty good. So, Severian, where do judges start at in the grand scheme of things?
All judges have to start as cadets. So I added that in my light paths here. That gives me 18 years.
That's another thing that's dictated by your careers as your ages. Excuse me. You mentioned that, right? You said 18 years is for your first as a cadet. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. My bad.
That's fine. And then I move on to add the attributes that gives me. It gives me +1 strength, endurance, willpower, and logic.
And this represents your initial academy training, right? Because judges are very specialized individuals who are taken from a very young age and put into the Academy of Law.
And then for every career, I get to choose 2 skills and 1 exploit. I went with perception and law for my skills, and for the exploit, I get Academy of Law curriculum, which gives me 1 rank in each of the following skills: law, pistols, riding, light armor, and clubs. And then I get to use it as a mental defense skill also, which I think we're going to talk about later.
Mm-hmm. Once you have gone through being a cadet, all judges then choose 2 academy careers. There are 8 different ones currently, ranging from applied violence to basic mechanics and advanced driving schools. So this allows you to specialize your judge just a little bit. So Severian, what did you choose for Judge Null? I guess he'd be Cadet Null at this phase.
Right, cadet. So I chose for the first one basic psionics. Since he's going to be a psi judge, I got to start somewhere with that.
What does that give you?
I'll be adding that in my life path here, which that gives me another year to my age. My attributes, that gives me intuition, will, psi, and charisma +1. And for my 2 skills, I'm choosing telepathy and clairsentience. For my exploit, I get Psych 101, which gives me +1 to insight, psychology, 2 social skills, which I chose intimidate and detect lie for. And that also allows me to use clairsentience or telepathy as defensive skills.
And then for your second career in the academy, what did you select?
For my second career, I went with the hot dog run.
Interesting. While you fill that out, I'd actually like to talk briefly about the hot dog run. I read about this in the comics first. So I started reading Judge Dredd very, very recently. I had seen the 1995 movie, which was, and now that I know more about Dredd, I'm very much the 2012 3D Dredd 3D. I really, really like. In fact, the badge that I have is based on that, and I've just started doing a little bit of cosplay stuff. So I now have just put together the Lawgiver Mark II based on the Dredd 2012 movie. I really like this thing. It's going to be beautiful once it's painted. But before we started playing this, I started reading the comics, and where it was recommended to start was what's called Case File 5, which is 5 years into the Judge Dredd comics. These comics started in either 1976 or 1977, one of the two, I can't remember. So after I read through, there was the hot dog run in here, and now I've gone back and I've started to read the earlier ones. But let me explain what happens. If you're watching this, I assume that you know a little bit about Dredd. In case you don't know, there was an atomic war where a lot of the world was destroyed. There are 3 megacities left in America protected by a laser grid which block these nuclear missiles. Megacity 1, which is where we'll be playing, Megacity 2 on the west coast, and then Texas City, which was originally Megacity 3. In between this is the Cursed Earth, a wasteland full of mutants, radiation pools, and scattered remnants of human society, with some places able to grow things for the megacities. But a lot of it is dangerous land, and there are many mutant factions which can cause havoc out in these places. Sometimes judges are called to take action to protect Megacity 1 or Megacity 2 or Texas City's interests. In this case, sometimes judges will take cadets out into the waste with lawmasters and lawgivers to accomplish a specific mission. This is called a hot dog run. So, Sev, what did you end up taking for your skills for the hot dog run?
Hot dog run skills, I took law and pistols. I mostly took pistols just because at this point, Judge Null was kind of lacking in some self-defense there. I'm just filling out the last couple skill points now from these few careers. For my next career, I took another career that every judge has to take, which is the rookie career.
The rookie career, which is what we just kind of played through, right? The full Eagle Day, where you were taken out onto your final street test with Dredd, and you almost didn't make it through that one, huh?
Yeah, that was a close one. Dredd saved the day for us.
Well, and I'm sure that you could have made it, but it was a scenario. I'm not a big fan of railroading, but the scenario that's how it was written. I thought it was still pretty fun. Yeah. It did feel fitting. So when you are a rookie, what happens? And what did you end up taking for your skills?
Skills on this one, I took brawling and pistols. Just another way to beef up Judge Null's defenses a little bit, and he got to use a lot of that skill out there on the streets during his test.
Yeah.
So that adds 1 more year to my age.
Okay.
And with the rookie, nice thing is that you get to choose which 4 attributes you want to add to. I chose Psi, Willpower, Intuition, and Charisma.
Okay.
All right. There we go. For my exploit, I'm filling that in here now. I took Ride Your Luck on rookie, which is a nice one dealing with luck, where I get to recharge my luck pool once a day. And finally, once I'm through rookie, I'm able to choose Side Judge for my last and 5th career.
Okay.
This one actually gives me 1d6 years. So I will roll that now.
Okay.
If I can find my way back to the window.
Yeah, I had the same problem.
There we go, I got 6. So that actually puts me over the age category for being a young character to an adult character, which begins at 26, I believe.
So whenever
So-
you are an adult character, it doesn't have any impact on your skills and attributes, correct?
Right.
So
On the skills there, I took another point in clairsentience and one into insight. For my exploit, I get psychic battery for the one I chose anyways. That gives me 3d6 additional power points, which is my pool for using psionic abilities.
okay. Did you roll it? I'm sorry, I'm looking here. There it goes. I always like to watch because as a GM on these character generation things, I don't like anybody having ones, right? That's, you want to enjoy your character. You don't want to be upset about it.
I switched over to the combat and equipment tab there on my character sheet and put that 9 into my points. And that finishes up all of my careers.
Okay. So once you've done that, then you choose between some exploits. The first is you have to pick between feign and aim, which essentially are kind of the same thing, right? They affect your dice pool for either ranged combat with aim or melee combat with feign.
And I chose aim for this. Cadet Null doesn't do all that great in melee combat.
Not a big day stick or a boot knife kind of guy, huh?
No, he tried and gave up.
Yeah.
So
Recommend.
for that, I add another exploit here, and I will add that this gives me +2. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's my other exploit I chose.
Right. The exploits are great in this. I like the way the system built them. Exploits are just special abilities that usually add dice, lower difficulty, or allow you to do special things. Many of them require certain skills or other prereqs, which is also a nice benefit. So if you are doing character generation, make sure you pay attention to those prereqs. So as part of character generation, you mentioned that you also get that extra exploit. So what was the one that you chose?
Yeah, I actually chose Iron Will.
Okay.
And that gives me +2 mental defense.
Very much a Judge Null. I'm going to have to get over saying the Cadet Null now that he passed his final street test.
Okay, so I added that +2 to my mental defense there. I think that's very important for a side judge to have. The next step would be my trait, which is a part of the descriptor. Did you want to touch on what the descriptor is?
Sure, absolutely. So the descriptors we kind of mentioned earlier, this is one of the things that I also like about the system. It adds a layer of depth, more than just, hey, I've got a badge and a gun, right? I'm going to go around and do stuff. A descriptor tells your age, a trait, your species, the career, and your hook. Your hook is a background, a broad background skill that allows for a bonus in a non-combat type thing. So, for example, you could have a judge who theoretically loves going to the range, right? That doesn't give you extra dice in combat on ranged skills. What it might do is give you a bonus to looking at shot groups, on doing an investigation, on determining the type of weapon. So the trait, which you've mentioned, is related to your highest skill and gives you a small bonus. Let's look at your hook first. What did you choose for the hook for Judge Null?
So for the hook, I ended up going with what I said earlier, is that Judge Null sees the good in people.
Okay. Which was very prominent during Full Eagle Day, right? I remember times when Cadet Null at the time was telling others, hey, let's not blow up government or private property. Let's put the firearms away and actually have a chat. But Cadet Null still had that hardened attitude that a judge requires whenever criminals needed to be put in their place. So that's your hook. What did you choose for your trait? What is your highest attribute?
For the trait, I follow the table, and they're using my highest attribute being willpower. And with willpower, the two choices were stoic or unflappable. I went with stoic for Judge Null.
What does stoic do?
Stoic lets me, once per day, when you would normally be reduced to 0 health, you are reduced to 1 health instead.
Do not let Dion hear that you took that, or he will try to make you the tank.
The tank, yeah.
And so your age was already determined, and from your career skills, and I believe that takes care of your descriptor then.
Yeah, looks like it.
So Judge Null is a adult human judge who sees the good in everyone.
Close. So for the adults, you don't really need to list that as a descriptor. Only when you do young or old. So Judge Null is a stoic human side judge who sees the good in everyone.
There we go. Thank you. So the next thing that we do in character generation is the derived statistics. Again, I'm a very big fan of this because it allows you some choices. It's not just like in Dungeons & Dragons or the D20 system where it's like your AC is based on your armor, your dexterity bonus, and so on and so forth. Maybe you are, I believe I said before, skinny quick, right? Just because you are fast doesn't mean that you can't hit somebody with a melee weapon. Where in Dungeons & Dragons, it requires you to have strength bonus. So there are several different derived statistics. The first one we're going to start with is health. So health is you roll an endurance pool, a willpower pool, and if you have it, the hardy skill. So you don't have the hardy skill, do you?
No, I don't.
So what is your endurance pool and your willpower pool?
My endurance pool is 2d6 and my willpower pool is 3d6. Using the table in the book, I get, let's see here, 14. I'm sorry, 18 health points.
Oh, so you're going with the flat skill instead of rolling it, huh?
Well, it's up to the GM, really.
For derived statistics with the health, I'm willing to let you push your luck if you really want. But if we can go with the 18, because so many of these skills, derived skills anyways, are based on if you were to roll an average of 3.5. So sometimes you don't want to let that luck, take over. It's very much up to the GM whether they want you to roll defense every single time or your initial health points every single time. In this case, I'm very open, and I think going with the 5d6 and taking the 18 might be the best route. It's up to you.
Okay. Yep, I think that's the route I'm going to go.
Okay. And then after that, we move... Again, thankfully, one of the other notes in here that I should mention is that health and defense is the minimum you can have is 10. So even if you have terrible luck, the minimum you're going to have is 10. So speed is the next derived ability set. Your speed is essentially the number of 5-foot increments you can take as an action. In this game, you get 2 actions. They're not divided up by move and slow or fast or anything like that. They're just 2 actions. So your base speed is your strength plus your agility pool plus running if you have it. So what is Judge Null's speed?
So Judge Null has a strength pool of 2d6 and agility pool of 2d6 also. So that's 4d6 and no running skill. So that would put me, or I'm sorry, no, it's the values, isn't it?
Yes,
values.
yes. That's what I was about to say. That's why I was kind of going like this, kind of, yeah.
Okay, so strength plus agility would be 7.
7. So you could run 35 feet
Yes.
in with an action. Now, climbing, swimming, 0G, and high G are all done very similarly, except for we switch some things out. Number 1, you do half the amount. So if you have strength and agility pool, you said of 7, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so 7, you would divide that by half and round up. And then instead of adding before the division, instead of adding running, you would add climbing, swimming, 0G, or high G.
Okay, I don't have any of those. Then the only thing left on there is my jump. Horizontal is agility times 2, and vertical is my strength. There you go. That's all my movement-based derived attributes.
Put in the size of your strength dice pool plus your agility dice pool. It's, sorry, let's back up for just a second. It is your speed is your strength dice pool plus your agility dice pool. So in other words, your strength is what again?
Okay, so I was right.
Yeah. I was feeling kind of weird about that, and so anytime something like that happens, I go back and double check. So my apologies. So you had, what's your strength dice pool?
2d6, and my agility is also 2d6.
And you have no running, so your speed is 4, not 7.
Right.
I was thinking that's a really fast cadet or Judge Null.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You always make these little mix-ups. So, and you took care of your jump.
Yes,
So-
that I did do correctly.
And that's in units of feet, not squares. So, and that's the amount. Actually, that's the height you can jump without making a check. So if you need to jump higher, you can still make a check. Carry is basically the amount of stuff that you can carry in pounds before you start to take issue and start to lose the physical attribute dice and speed. So in the case of carry, it is your strength plus your endurance multiplied by 10. This is your values.
That gives me 4 plus 5, 9 times 10 is 90, so I get 90 for my carry increment here.
So your carry strength plus endurance, just double checking, times 10. Yes. Okay.
All right. Next would be the initiative, but I don't believe there's a place on the sheet for that, and usually we're gonna roll it most of the time.
Right. So initiative can also be done with the static dice, just like defenses. Some GMs can do that if you want. If you decide as a GM that you would like to do a static initiative pool, which speeds things up, you would take your INT pool plus tactics or reactions. So your intuition plus tactics or reactions. In game terms, I like to roll initiative because sometimes you get caught a little flat-footed. So we'll get to that in game. Hi everyone. You may notice that Severian and I are wearing different clothes. It's actually a different day now, because essentially Twitch didn't record the tail end of our video. And I felt that, and Severian and I both felt, that there was some very important details that weren't covered. In particular, what got cut off was the defenses. This is one of the derived skills that are very important to this game. So we're going to cover it really quick. We'll do a end of the action kind of review with Severian on how he feels about Judge Null now, and then we'll wrap up this video. So there are 4 different defense scores, and this is one of the big things that I really like about this game, because somebody may be really good at hand-to-hand but not able to get out of the way of anything, or they might be weak mentally, or they might be super strong physically. So these 4 these 4 defense scores are melee, ranged, mental, and vital. Mental is in hand-to-hand weapons or hand-to-hand combat. So both of these things are covered by melee defense. Range is against projectiles. Mental is your ability to withstand mental onslaughts. And vital is how tough you are at absorbing types of punishment like poisons or getting sick or dealing with long-term activity. So each of these, you're going to take an attribute plus a skill and then plus equipment. we'll deal with the equipment later. And for each of the skills or different types of defenses, you can choose between different skills. So with melee, the attribute is either strength or agility. And again, this is what I was mentioning, what I really like about the system. It gives you a selection here. And then for your skills, you can use acrobatics, dodging, foresight, or a melee skill when you're using that particular weapon or set of skills. So for example, a martial artist could use their martial arts skill whenever they're fighting hand to hand, but they couldn't use it if they were doing something like sword and board activities, right? A sword and shield. So Judge Null, what is his melee defense?
His melee defense came out to 11. My strength attribute gives me 2d6, and then I have a telepathy skill that I can use because of my Psych 101 exploit. I can use that as a defense skill. So total, that gives me 3d6, coming to 11 defense on the table.
And hopefully we'll improve that with the judge equipment once we get to that on probably our next video. The game also mentions that you want to have your defenses to be roughly at 4d6. That just, if you're planning on getting into any type of physical combat, it's a good thing to do. So hopefully the equipment will bring that up a little bit. The one thing that I wanted to mention with melee as well, all of these defense skills, is going back to this idea of the static numbers. So what essentially, there's a chart inside of the rule book that has a average roll of 3.5, and then it sums them up for all the dice in the dice pool. Your GM might want you to roll it every single time, but that takes a lot of time. So we're going to be sticking with the static for the defenses, and then for initiative, we're going to do the rolling. So ranged is agility plus acrobatics, dodging, or foresight. Note that you can't use any weapons or at least weapons, to increase your range defense. So what was, I keep still using Cadet Null. I'm so used to it. It's because we played for a month like that. Judge Null. What is Judge Null's range defense?
His range defense also came out to 11. 2d6 for his agility, and then telepathy again gives 1d6 for 3d6 total.
Okay. Mental is either going to be willpower or charisma, plus concentration, bravery, conviction, discipline, leadership, meditation, psychology, or religion rulership. So there's a lot of different things that you could find mental fortitude in, right? You could believe, have strong mental fortitude due to your belief in a god, or your belief in, just being a disciplined individual, or that you're a leader and you have to set the bar. So there's lots of ways to be strong mentally. What did I imagine, just from what we've done with Judge Null's stuff, that he's going to have a fairly high mental defense?
He does have a high mental defense. So the will attribute gives me 3d6, and I have an exploit for being a cadet called the Academy of Law Curriculum. Lets me use law as a mental defense skill, and that totals to 5d6, and in the table that gives me 18 mental defense.
Wow.
But because of my Iron Will exploit, I also get 2 more on top of that, totaling 20 mental defense.
Wow. So if the Dark Judges happen to show up in one of these stories, Judge Null is going to be leading the charge in this, I assume. But otherwise, probably not going to be the first person in line, right?
No, absolutely not.
So the last defense is your vital defense. This is going to be your endurance plus fortitude, resistance, or survival. What was Judge Null's vital defense?
Judge Null's endurance pool is only 2d6, and I don't have any of the other skills to add to this, so that gives me only a 7. But because this actually has a minimum of 10, I bumped it up to 10 for vital defense.
Awesome. So just as a final reminder for what Severian just said, your defenses all should have at a minimum 10. Okay, so remember that requirement. Also remember during character generation that you can take defensive skills instead of the listed skills in your career. So if you're lacking a little bit in one and you have a lot of skill in another, then maybe you should go back and take a look at your character, because it's important to remember that there are maximum dice pools. So you might have, you're just trying to do that whole min-max, and you have 5 skill points inside of pistols, but you can only use a certain number of dice because of the maximum of dice pool based on your careers. So just tying things up, there's still a couple of things that we would need to do with character generation, including equipment, which is set for judges, requisition, which we'll talk about in another video. But like I said, we're going to save that for another day. So taking
one last derived attribute that we have is for psionics.
We didn't cover that in the last video, so go ahead.
Being a psi judge, that's very important to me, and that's where I get all my resource pool to cast my psionic abilities, and that's comes from rolling my psionic plus my willpower pools.
Go for it. If you haven't rolled it already, or if you don't have a thing up because we're using a different video, that's totally cool.
I do not quite have that up at the moment.
That's okay.
I would add that to my other exploit where I already had some power pool added to it.
Okay. We'll take care of that whenever we do the next video then, or in between videos. Thanks for bringing that up, because we did forget about that the last time and kind of remembered it right after the video shut off. So how do you feel in between the D20 system and this what's old is new? Like, how do you feel about Judge Null now?
I feel like the character creation in this lets me explore the role-playing side of Judge Null a lot better. I have a descriptor now that I can quickly sum up in one sentence some of the core like personality features of Judge Null, and that helps me give him purpose and drive him forward in the campaign.
Other than just drive here, arrest this guy, drive here, shoot this guy.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about this system too, is it pushes even for judges to be more than just a combat character. So before we end the broadcast, the YouTube video is going to have a little bit of music in the background, and in some of our games, you'll hear music in the background. One of the authors of some of the synthwave music that we use is White Bat Audio. So I highly recommend you checking out their YouTube video. They also have a website. All of it, their White Bat Studios work is royalty free. Just need to give the credit. This wasn't done for the credit. I can do that in the YouTube comment section. I just wanted to give a shout out because I really like this guy's work. He even does a couple of death metal songs, and they're actually pretty good. So that wraps up our broadcast. Hopefully this one records right. This I guess third time's a charm. Until then, this is Judge Wolf.
And Severian.
And we'll see you out on the street, citizens.